Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
The Sun Devils are hopefully rested up after a unusual bye week in which they had no practices whatsoever, but talking to the guys, they seem to have a rejuvenating effect, and that's good because they got a tough, scrappy opponent coming to town as the Devils will be hosting West Virginia for homecoming.
Yeah, the last stretch of the regular season is here. ASU embarks on these final 3 games, still very, very important on the outside looking in, very encouraging for ASU for the most part, but each one very, very critical, not just in ASU's, still existent interest to make some big splashes this year, but also, of course, just to make it as memorable and as successful as humanly possible at a one-at-a-time pace. ASU will welcome a familiar face to the sidelines of Mountain America Stadium that may, I don't know, be jumping. Does he do the jumping around and hooting and hollering and punt flagging? I know he does some punt flagging these days, I think.
That's still going on?
I don't know if it's all the time. I just remember the punt flag Twitter account, from the Sun Devil fan base made a resurgence earlier this season because there was the sighting of a punt flag at a West Virginia game. So that was a wonderful thing. Of course, we're talking about good old Rich Rod. We will talk in great detail about that as he is back with West Virginia, headed to ASU for some morning football on Saturday.
So I will say a quick aside on Rich Rod. I tweeted something about just like the game time or something, and U of A fans who just like to be searching for some other ammo. Guy tweeted back, "You guys are gonna lose. Rich Rod owns ASU."
But I mean, 0-3 in Tempe.
0-3 in Tempe, 2-4 overall. So I mean, that's definitely like some U of A accounting department type of math there for ownership.
But yeah, there you.
That's wild.
Interesting stuff, and that is very interesting to like have an allegiance to a coach that had to exit in disgrace.
Exactly.
Like it's like that'd be like an ASU fan, maybe not to that degree, but kind of like an ASU fan defending Herm Edwards. So that's really interesting, especially when I hate to say but they're doing better than people thought. Like you got enough to focus on now. Why? But whatever.
So yeah, West Virginia is winners of 2 straight. They'll be coming to town, so it should be a nice, interesting morning clash. As we'll break that down a little bit later on with West Virginia insider Keenan Cummings. We'll also be talking to a couple of Sun Devils who are playing prominent roles. Of course, the one of the top corners in the country. We'll be talking to Keith Abney and also one of the young upstart Sun Devils, true freshman Maki Stewart, who made his first career start at left guard and is in line to do so again. But just in a couple of minutes, we're going to be talking to an old friend of the program, Ben Coleman. Catching up with him now that, of course, he suffered the unfortunate season-ending injury, but that certainly is not keeping him down. He's still out there contributing with the guys, and we'll be catching up on all the good things he's doing. But, Joe, let's dive into some news. And, of course, this season, that means injury updates. And this is also an unfortunate one. Safety Xavier Alford, who had been really kind of keeping some hope for a end-of-the-season return from injury. Well, that door is now officially closed. Kenny Dillingham has ruled him out, and it's just a shame when you think about just media day back in July, just the contingent of 6 that ASU sent out there. You have Sam Levitt now with injury, Ben Coleman, Xavier Alford, Jordan Tyson dealing with injuries on that front. It's just this is the season. Just the injury bug is taking plenty of bites.
Yeah, I mean, very, very sadly, if you were to list like the top 5 players on the team in general, entering the season, you probably are talking about the guys who are either out now or have been at some point. Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson, Xavier Alford, Ben Coleman. They're among the very tops there. Someone like Kyson Brown, who's obviously been severely limited as well. So the bug has hit this team. So it's a remarkable thing that they are where they are and still being able to have a very highly successful season ahead of it if business can be taken care of. But it's very, very unfortunate for Alfred specifically, someone that was just such a heart and soul of this defense last year and a first team all Big 12 honors candidate in 2024, and looking every part of trying to defend that honor this year. So that's a very, very unfortunate thing. And it seems like I remember seeing or reading some things months ago about could it be possible for another year? But it just seems like the narrative is that that's not going to be the case because everything seems to be talking about the next level.
It could be. Yeah. He has the ability to come back, of course. I believe, despite his 6 years in journey, he still has another year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken, or worst case, probably a good shot, a successful medical red shirt. But Yeah, and I think that's the big question now: is he can come back? Also, is he at this point? 6 years in college football is a long time, and at certain point, kind of age kind of can ding you in that pre-draft process as much as being out a year for injuries. So interesting. I think no matter what he's going to do, he's going to be very successful at it. One of the heart and soul players. One of the key. I don't think this ASU turnaround happens without Xavier Alford. Of course, coming in 2023. That bogus ruling keeping him and Jake Smith ineligible
Yeah.
that first year. But he never wavered from that utmost positivity and one of those foundational pieces. We saw what he could do when he was unleashed last year. So rent is due. I don't know if it's going to be in college for the Sun Devils another year or at the NFL level, but X has just been such an impactful player on and off the field. He's been out there all season long at practice, cheering on and coaching up his teammates. So it's obviously a huge absence that this team's had to overcome, but unfortunately, just one of many.
Yep, that's the truth. It's highly unfortunate, but again, for ASU to be in the spot it's in, because we have seen other seasons, like when you mentioned that Rich Rod, one of those two losses, that 2016 year where you lost a ton of players due to injury and things just completely fell apart. Now, obviously, this ASU team is just under a different direction, a great deal of high level talent, though there was, a great deal on that team as well. But it's just kind of a contrast, a difference of how ASU's been able to cushion many blows, and look no further than the performance by Jeff Sims at quarterback against Iowa State. So that's a testament and statement to the team, the staff, the players who are not always starters, for them to be ready for that opportunity and prepared for it, and not just kind of slacking off because they're not the guy at that particular point. It showed, this season has proven that a lot of things can happen. A lot of people can be thrown into action. So again, there's a lot left of the season to be written, and by the end of it, it could be a very, very special one.
All right, some more positive injury updates. Kenny Dillingham did say that defensive end Prince Dorbah will return versus West Virginia. Linebacker Tate Romney is, in his words, quote, working his way back to play against West Virginia. So that's a promising update there. He also mentioned that there's really no change in the status of Jordan Tyson from last week. Now, if you recall, last week he said that West Virginia is probably not going to happen, but there's a chance that they're looking at a return against Colorado. Obviously, that would have some extra meaning for Jordan Tyson in personally, but that could be a nice boost down the stretch for the Devils for those final two games if JT is able to return.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a great scenario. Just it wasn't really, counting on him getting back this week, just kind of, reading the tea leaves, so to speak. But for all purposes, ASU's and his alone, because of course Jordan Tyson began at Colorado before transferring to ASU in 2023. And what folks need to remember is he actually was here in 2023, just was injured, didn't play. So I'm sure that those are the games that you circle when you transfer away, right? And then of course being prepared for that one that follows after that. I'm sure that if there were two games on the schedule, I don't want to speak too liberally for Jordan Tyson, but I would imagine that if he were to circle two games on the schedule, in the beginning of the season, those might be the top two that he would schedule as far as the most important to him. So if ASU can get him back for those two games, that would obviously be a huge thing.
All right, so as we're probably just a couple weeks away from the draft industrial complex going into full gear. Some good news for a couple of the elder statesmen of the Sun Devil roster. Jordan Tyson, Maxi Hanachor, and linebacker Keyshawn Elliott all received Shrine Bowl invites. That's in one of the obviously key gatherings for the pre-draft process. And of course, other bowl games to come, Reese's Senior Bowl in that mix as well. Of course, the big combine in Indianapolis and coming in February. But, those wheels are starting to turn as the season's gets to the home stretch.
Yeah, and those are good honors to have and good opportunities for some of these players to get showcased and put themselves in a solid draft position. We'll see how that pans out for ASU and working things in the next level. And though it's awful that Cam Scadaboo for the Giants is out for the duration that he is after the incredible start that he had, hopefully this next crop of Sun Devils into the professional ranks can just really start to just get a new lifeblood of Sun Devils in the NFL. It kind of seems like, with the few rare exceptions, the Brandon Ayuks of the world, the last several years just been real spotty, just as far as ASU players that are in the NFL, especially ones that are, making big things happen. So you hope that can be a new trend from these successful ASU teams on the field for that to develop at the professional level.
Can say that, throughout the course of this season at ASU practices and, as you walk into the College practice facility, they have a kind of a little sandwich board there. It's saying, like, with the logos of NFL teams that have scouts there each or that particular day. And And it seems like each week there's been a high number of teams that have been keeping their eyes very closely on the Sun Devils. So hopefully this translates to a busy April to hear some names called. Last thing before we talk with our friend Ben Coleman, the Colorado kickoff time. Joe, of course, that's ASU's final road trip of the season. You know, some potential weather implications. Well, we still don't know when that game's going to kick off because I believe 6 of the 7 games on the Big 12 slate for the weekend of the 22nd are the dreaded 6-day hold.
At this point, I think it's gonna be like midnight or something like that. I mean, there's some wonky scheduling going on, and this is Brad and I were talking about this before we went on the air. I'm gonna have to ask my old man because Sun Devil sports fans, you know that there's a really kind of wacky turnaround going on this weekend because ASU hosts national powerhouse Gonzaga for men's basketball on a 9 p.m. tip-off. And then this West Virginia game is an 11 a.m. kickoff. I mean, that is wild that the starts to those games are, 14 hours apart. It's just a really wild thing. And then, so you got the 11 a.m. kickoff, then we got the night game for U of A. I'm expecting, something wild, but I'm sure it's going to be an ideal kickoff time if it were in Tempe. So we just have to kind of live, through that part of things.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to see how that plays out because I know for folks covering the football game, got to be there about 8 a.m. So yeah, that the game's tipping off or probably concluding a little after 11, and then writing the stories and such like that. So I will not be covering the basketball game, so I can dodge that bullet. But that's even just the football thing is a little ridiculous.
Wild stuff for sure. So before we chat with our good friend Ben Coleman, when Ben's in the lineup, it's his job to protect the quarterback. And just like he and his teammates do that for the Sun Devils, you want to make sure that you protect your home against any sort of pests or varmints that might be wanting to invade your residence. And to do that, you got to get connected with Nice Pest Company. Not only a highly accomplished business in what they do with pest control, but also owned and operated by ASU alumni and die-hard Sun Devil sports fans. They serve residences and businesses all over the valley. And as we always tell you, Sun Devil fans, you can get your first service for just $42 with 100% of those proceeds being donated by Nice Pest Company to ASU's Sun Angel NIL Collective. So that's what you got to do. Get with Nice Pest Company. Support those who support the things that you love. Give your business to fellow Sun Devils with an incredible reputation who, just like you, want to do their part to help Sun Devil athletics to thrive. Nice Pest Company has sent well over 100,000 bugs to their final resting place, and with well over 200 5-star Google reviews, you can rest easy knowing you and your family and your home are all in great hands. So whether you've got scorpions or bed bugs or roaches or I don't know, do mountaineers count as that sort of thing? Maybe they do. Yeah. There you go. Buffaloes and then them varmints at the end of the year. Let's just wipe out the whole slate with Nice Pest Company. Whatever you got. Or if you just want to prevent your home from being invaded by those sort of pests, give Nice Pest Company a shout so you can have the peace of mind that you deserve. Let them do the dirty work. It's always a nice day to support the Sun Devils. And with Nice Pest Company, it's always a nice day to be bug-free. Check them out online at nicepest.com for a free quote. And be sure to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Nice Pest Company. All right, Sun Devil fans, joining us once again, great friend of the show, Sun Devil offensive lineman, Ben Coleman. Ben, my man, welcome back aboard. Great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Excited to be here.
Excellent, excellent. As folks know, Ben very, very sadly out for the year with an injury. So not to reopen the wounds literally and figuratively, but just for viewers and listeners of ours who may not know all the details of what you're going through, just kind of take us back, the injury that you suffered, when it occurred, and kind of the process that you've gone through from that point to where you are right now.
Yeah, versus Utah. Obviously, it was a big game for us. I think they probably themselves up front. So I actually went back to guard for that game. Try to put myself in as many one-on-one situations backside, and was happy that content with that. And so I was looking forward to it. Had a great game so far. And on the pass set where I think it was either JT or Malik had the PI in that back corner of the end zone on that first drive, just went to punch and I ended up kind of high-fiving the guy. Awkward type of movement, and end up hearing didn't exactly know exactly what happened, but I just know my stomach hurt really bad. So you kind of see that everybody kind of didn't know from the TV copy, like, what was it? And I see your legs moving, so it's not your legs, like. So I think it was just that kind of feeling of shock from my body. So I ended up tearing my tricep. going through MRI the next day, and everybody, Dr. Wise was pretty confident. Had surgery that following Wednesday. I really want to get it done as soon as possible. I think you never want to get surgery, but when you're injured, especially as an athlete, you want to get that done as soon as possible for that. You can really start that recovery process. And ever since then, now been laying low. Essentially I'm in a brace now, but stitches are out. Essentially the scar is fully healed. Dr. Schaber did a great job, an incredible job, like he's always done. He did my Achilles as well, and so now it's just on the road to recovery.
So, most importantly, just how are you feeling now? Just with a few weeks away from that surgery.
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. I think from a mental perspective, more than anything, obviously it being your arm, it's difficult, but at the same time, it's not a real world problem. When we talk about that all the time, in our football space throughout the facility, is that the stuff that we go through is not giant problems when you come to the real world. We got to play football. We got hurt. We signed up knowing that it could happen, and we see it happen with a couple other guys. I'm not the only one. Unfortunately, on my team, that's happened to. And then even with Scat, so you talk about friends, former teammates that it's happened to. It's kind of ironic that we're all kind of in the same boat, considering we were also close last year. Me, Sam, and obviously JT missed some time as well. Unfortunately, now we have X as well. So, obviously, wishing him my best as well. I think he may be tomorrow to complete his. So all of us, kind of in the same boat, disappointed, especially, when the season started and what we want to do and accomplish. But I think the biggest thing is that from a mental perspective, we're all in a much better place. After you get that surgery, you get going, you get back around your guys, and you're in a much better, mental space.
So you've battled some injury issues before, like specifically in 2023 here. How have past experiences with that helped you prepare mentally, for what you're going through now in this recovery?
I think you have to have patience. You have to have patience. There's times you want to cry. You may feel left out because you're not having the ability to play. That first drive, Iowa State, it was the first time that I watched the game. Obviously 2023, but it was a different perspective for myself, just because in 2023 I knew I was going to be out since February. So there wasn't anything bad when I saw, I missed spring ball. I missed everything. So it wasn't necessarily a shock, but I think Cal in 2021 was the last time that I watched a game from home, and it was kind of different. That was because of COVID. So we got out of COVID. Obviously, we played the team down south on the road that year as well.
I remember that. I think I remember that game. Was that the one where there was like barely anybody available for the
Yeah,
team?
nobody. We had the flying coaches. It was crazy, and
Yeah, that's
nobody
right.
could score. Nobody could do anything. Backup quarterback. It was ironic, and of course they hadn't won a game. I think it was 2021, and then in 2022 we actually lost to JT. They hadn't won a game either, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, so that was the last time I watched it, when the announcer kind of just mentioned, yeah, the center Ben Coleman now have Wade Helton in there and some other guys rotating in. I think that was the first time it kind of hit me from an emotional standpoint. It was kind of ironic. My fiance had left the room to kind of go take care of just some house chores. And so that was the first time I was emotional, crying at the TV, just because it was different versus, Houston and Texas Tech. I was at the game. So although you feel like, man, you want to play, you feel the emotions. Texas Tech, obviously us winning. Houston, unfortunately, we lost. We didn't take care of business. But I was on the sideline, so it was different. You didn't feel so out of touch. But Iowa State was the first time where it's like you feel out of touch. Like, man, I really can't even help, even from a vocal perspective. So that was tough, from an emotional standpoint. That was tough for sure.
Now you've been back at practice recently, a great sight to see out there, and and working with those offensive linemen. How have you been aiming to contribute, and how, what ways do you feel that you've been contributing, even though you're out of the lineup?
I think just adding a different perspective to those guys. When you talk about with coaches, it can be rough. Obviously, they mean well, especially Coach Saab. So I think I was always that calming factor that everybody kind of felt. So I want to make sure that I'm that same way, being able to talk to guys and understand, hey, man, maybe this is the way. It's not always about the tone in which he's saying it, but it's about what is he saying? What are you trying to get accomplished? What are the words that he's trying to get across to you? So I want to make sure, especially with those young guys playing, you have Wade, and obviously he's a second-year guy. But you also have Makai in there. And so being a first-year guy, I want to be able to provide as much experience as I can. And then also helping them understand it's like, man, it's really not that hard. Football is not hard relatively. It's all about preparation. And I think that show Texas Tech, we talked about a lot. I remember going through, and that's when I hadn't got my surgery yet. And I just wanted to take a second before I left the facility for that week to really talk to those guys. And I wanted to show film from other guys and say, what mistakes did they make? Let's really see. Obviously, Texas Tech had a tremendous front. And so I was just really telling the tackles, like, what exactly did these tackles do wrong when they had a chip? What set did they take? And I think they were able to kind of visualize that. So they went out, the tackles went down, and they played a great game, in my opinion. And they held up. I know people probably spooked because they got some pressure early, but then they realized throughout the game, like, hold on, Sam is back there making it happen, man. It's not as much pressure as we thought. So credit to those guys, man. So I just try to get as much input as I could from Texas Tech, Houston, and then West Virginia this week to be able to, just from a footwork perspective, but also like, hey, this is what I would do in this situation. And then I also think from a one-on-ones perspective, I think there's so many different periods in practice where you can have an input and impact. So I definitely want to first, resonate with the older guys and make sure I still provide that common factor like I did before, and then also provide as much insight as I can to those young guys that are playing inside.
So you mentioned that Iowa State game was a difficult one for you to watch, from an emotional perspective, but on the field, obviously a great game for ASU, and for the offensive line specifically, very likely the best game of the season. Some really great numbers protecting Jeff Sims there. What was your take on the performance of the O-line in that specific game against Iowa State?
Well, I think the tears stopped when Jeff scored that first touchdown. Obviously, Max had that tough holding penalty. Whether it was a good call or not, I mean, we'll leave that up to the refs, right? It is what it is. That happens. But he's playing fast. Max is playing fast. Stuff like that happens. But that's when it really stopped that whole drive because I was so excited. Jeff and I are really close on the team. I hosted him on his visit. I was born in Jacksonville. He's from Jacksonville. So everything we talk about is Jacksonville. Because not too many people, especially being on the West Coast, can relate to that. And I know I can from that perspective, especially my dad playing for the Jaguars back in the day. So I was super excited, man. I was super excited just for Jeff to have that breakout game. And I think for the offensive line to prove to themselves, like, man, listen, we have a guy out, but that doesn't matter, man. Because the reality is our standards are our standards, our preparation. We did this all throughout, we talk about from spring to summer to fall, from Camp T to all the hot days. It's exactly when it showed up. And it's so funny, all the hot days we endured just showed up on a cold, rainy day. But I was super excited, super proud of those guys. I couldn't wait to FaceTime them as soon as they were done. So in the locker room, seeing Max Grill talking about the game, Kyle Scott, and handing the phone to Jeff. So that was super fun, man. Especially when you talk about how many guys we were down and the situation going into where nobody really believed. And I feel like that's where we thrive the most as a program.
Speaking of the number of the guys that you guys were down, of course, you're out of the lineup. X is out of the lineup. JT, Sam, so many others. This team has really been ravaged by injuries. But to go on the road, take down a quality Iowa State team in the fashion, what do you think that win and that performance kind of collectively said about the character of this 2025 Sun Devil team?
I think then there's no quitting us, and we proved that all the way from Mississippi State game. That's the one that I feel like we really want back the most on Mississippi State game because, we proved and we want to finish the job, especially on the road. So I think that was exciting, man. There's never been no quitting us. I always tell the guys that's where we thrive at. I told them Texas Tech, man, put them in that spot. That's where we thrive at. We thrive in close games all from last year. We never panic. When we play Kansas, whether it be UCF, whether we play Texas in the Peach Bowl, it didn't matter. Who we played, where we played, when we played. We thrive in those moments where it's tough. And that's exactly what it showed to Iowa State. When it gets tough, when it gets muddy, when it's really just football, and you take all the politics and the notoriety out of it and all those different things, that's where we thrive at. So I harped on that a lot, Texas Tech. I'm like, man, we always say put them in a drill. That's the drill that we say. We thrive when it's hard because that's testament to our coaches, to our strength staff. That's what we do. Our whole program is built on just working hard. It's built on adversity and how you're going to respond to adversity. So we saw that at the game, and that's not just a 1 week thing. That's a yearly thing that's been building on since the first spring workout. So
with you out of the lineup, that's obviously a big hole to fill, some big shoes to fill for the guys that are in there. But now that you've seen them in action for a little bit, how do you think Wade Helton, Makua Pule have done, kind of stepping in and manning that interior offensive line role?
I think it's trust, man. I'll tell you guys an inside story. If you guys saw in that game, Iowa State, the center switched. They switched mid-plays. That didn't have anything to do with Coach T or anything. It's just about trust. And Wade had got his hand jammed in between two helmets. Obviously, at center, it's super cold. Anytime you play in a game like that, it gets wet. Your hands get cold. No matter what the degrees are, man, when you have that moisture, you put on the gloves, it gets super cold. And so I thought, I'm like, did you get pulled? What was going on? And he just said, no. My hand got jammed in mid-play. Like, as soon as we're looking at the signal, I just told him switch. And then he asked why I want to switch. So I'm cool without hesitating, just switch. Went to center. Wade went to guard because he felt like since his hand got smashed like that, he couldn't necessarily grip the ball. And he's healthy now, which is all good. But I think it just goes to the trust. And I brought that story up because they trust each other immensely. And that's just been going through, just building a rapport each and every week since Utah, since I've been out the lineup. And I think it's a tough part to build that team chemistry each and every day. You have to go out of your way to figure, okay, hey, no matter what position, coach puts us in, no matter who subs us in, we got to have a level of trust within each other so we can, achieve an ultimate goal, which is just to win the game, which to win the play, win the drive, and win the game. So I think it's a testament to those guys, man. They've been working hard and making sure that, one, that they love each other as people first. his teammates second, and then the third is obviously playing together. That'll take care of each other.
So, of course, Sam Levitt also unfortunately out for the year as well, but Jeff Sims comes in, puts together a performance that makes him the AP National Player of the Week. So now that the keys are fully his for the duration of this season, what kind of leader is Jeff Sims? Obviously, he's had some limited appearances during his Sun Devil career, but now that these Sun Devil fans are going to see him for the rest of the year, what kind of hands is the Sun Devil offense in?
Man, he's never rattled, and I think that's something that the fans should understand. He's never rattled. Don't worry about the score. Don't worry about if he's thinking too much. Don't worry about if the situation is too tough on him. That's just how he is. So even going to whatever game he's played, from the Utah game, it didn't matter. The score didn't matter. He never changed. So I think from a leader, man, he's leading by example, because you can look to him in the huddle and be like, are we down? Are we up? Or you'll never be able to tell with Jeff, because he's like, hey, man, cool, calm, and collected, and he's confident in his abilities. He trusts God, and I think when you trust God, you see that when you're patient. And that was definitely on God's time. And so I was just super proud of him and everything that he's done, waiting so long, just going back to the dinners and talking about when I first met him. I said, I want to talk about your failures. I mean, I know you can play football, but what are your failures? What really happened? Where were you at from a mental perspective when you were at the other schools? Why'd you leave Georgia Tech? What happened at Nebraska? Like, let's really talk about that, so I can understand you as a person, because obviously nobody will ever ask those questions, nor do they care, because they just want the results at the end of the day. They want wins. But I think it's important to have that quarterback that's super calm, and he's opposite from Sam. And those are both in a good way, because you guys can see Sam's passion. You can see him jumping up and down. And there's different ways. So there's always that energy spark. You can feel Sam. You can feel his passion for the game, even through the TV. And then Jeff is so funny. He's the opposite. He's cool, calm, and collected throughout each and every drive. And I think that allows people, when adversity hits, they can look at Jeff like, okay, cool. We're good, man. We're cool, calm. We're good to go.
Now, you talked about earlier how this team really has no quit in it. Now, with some of these injuries piling up, you kind of look at it now, and you've got the starting quarterback, number one receiver, number one running back, at least in the beginning of the season, figuring with Kyson Brown having been out for a long time, and the top returning offensive lineman and a first-team all-conference defensive back. Some pretty big names on that injury list, but they're still winning. They're still grinding. What's the emotional state of this team right now as it closes out this season, despite those injuries?
Oh, we know our back is against the wall at this point. We would love to obviously only have 2 losses, 1 loss, or 0 losses at this point. So we understand now, once again, this is where we live at, though. Last year, we knew that we had to win every game and go to the championship. This time, it's no different. Whether we go to the championship, we'll see what happens, right? We got to take it one game at a time. That's all we did last year. That's the whole reason we won. We never talked about the championship one time last year. It was all just one game at a time. It didn't matter who we were playing. How about we just win this game, and then let's see what happens? We always said, let's just see what happens. Let's win this game. And then that turned into a domino effect where, hold on, we just won all these games. And when we won the championship, I think we just looked, and we got on the bus, and we left AT&T Stadium. We were just like, what exactly did we just do? Because I think when we approached the championship, it was just another game to us. It happened so quick. We're going to the championship. We're in Dallas. Okay, cool. We're playing a different stadium. By the time, that first snap went off, it was just another game, until they realized, like, oh, this game meant something. Like, this game meant we won the championship. And I don't know if we necessarily realized until the confetti hit, like, man, what we said we wanted to accomplish, we did. All just by focus on one game at a time. So all the guys in the locker room, they're just harping on that, man. Just one game at a time. We play West Virginia. It doesn't matter who we play next. Let's take care of business this week, and then we'll go to next week and let's see.
Yeah, well said. Bruce Snyder, who was the head coach at ASU when they went to the Rose Bowl in '96, that was his mantra: one at a time. And though I firmly believe that the players should believe in that, for the purpose of this question, let's just fast forward 2 games. I know you're going to be chomping at the bit to get out on the field, but what's your message to your teammates going to be like the day after Thanksgiving, when that team travels up by 10 to come play in Tempe, and they're playing some good ball, and then probably be a much more difficult team this year than last year?
I think I agree with you. I think they remember what happened last year, just like we remembered, the people on the team, what happened the year before. You guys came to our house and you stomped us out. So we went to your house and we stomped you guys out. So now this is the third time around. They obviously have a new coach. This will be his second year. He's gonna be excited. He wants to get a win. He understands from his entire fan base what this means to their program to win the game. He also understands that they have great momentum now. They're a sneaker. They're sneaking around now. I think we see it. I think we maybe don't want to acknowledge it. As far as the country knows, but they've been playing exceptional football. You talk about BYU. I think that was the overtime game they went to, if I'm not mistaken, but they played them close, right? So when you look at those games and you really look at it, it kind of resembles a lot, from us last year. It's like, hold on, this team is pulling out these wins. They're kind of sneaking by. Nobody really cares. until it gets late in the season, they're like, hold on, this team might be good. So we definitely respect that portion. We see they're getting better, and we look forward to getting better. We don't feel like we have played a complete game yet. So I think it's just for the guys that haven't been in the rivalry, you got to understand, man, this is important. It's important for this state. It's important for this city. It's important for this university to win that game. And you said it first, man. Of course, I'm gonna be biting to get out there because I feel like, obviously I'm 1-0 as playing, but you feel like one-on-one, I feel like there's still a bad taste in their mouth because I'm sure they feel it as well because they came to our house and beat us. So it's different. It's always fun to go on the road, but it's different when, you have an entire fan base that leaves disappointed of the game. They walk in there, walk away with the cup, and you kind of have that sour picture in your mouth where you're like, man, stuff like that can't happen again. So I'm super excited. I'm super excited for those guys. There's a lot of returners that understand what that means. And I think for us, they're no different than us. They want to win as many games as possible because they just came off a bad season, the previous year. So they're going to be super excited, and they'll be super excited to come to ASU and spoil anything that we have going because they know that it'll be a bowl game for both of us after. So I know they want to get as many wins as possible. So I think it'll be a fun battle, man. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited for the guys.
So looking back overall on your time in Tempe, man, it's been a real eventful couple years for you. You got engaged, and congratulations on that for sure. You added to your list of degrees. You won a conference championship. But in your own words, we wish that it included more games played on the field. But what stands out the most to you about your time at Arizona State? Up to right now.
Well, no sacks. Let's start there. I always say that. I have no problem saying that. Nobody touched Sam Levitt, no matter who was in the game. If Jeff was in the game, no sacks. I definitely don't play about that, and that's just a funny thing that I joke about. But I said in my post, man, it really is truly special being an Arizona State Sun Devil. I've been at other universities, and they're so special that I cherish about that university as well. But when you go on a run like that, man, it's special, and it's all about people. Coach Dillingham talks about it all the time. Coach T talks about it. Man, it doesn't necessarily matter what we're doing. We're playing this child's game. It's all about the people that made it up. Last year was special, but it's really the work environment. Seeing the coaches so happy to be here. Seeing Coach Dillingham, he's so happy to be here. And then seeing the players, this offseason was special. It truly was. Whether it be me and Prince going to Mexico, whether it be me and Clayton, linking up, going barbecue and having people over, having a Super Bowl party where it's a mix of new guys and old guys from both teams, at that February point. It was truly special. I think, when people say it's a family environment, a lot of people like to say that. You like to break down the huddle and say family on three. But I think it's another thing to really provide action to that, to really live that on a day-to-day. And we saw that throughout the entire offseason, man. This offseason was truly special. And when it comes to football, man, some things will go your way and some things won't. You talk about all those guys that you mentioned that are injured, including myself. It's super unfortunate. We all want to play more games and finish off our career here in a different way. But when I look at it, man, I gave everything that I could to Arizona State. It was something that obviously was in my blood already, but I didn't really know what I was stepping into. And I don't think anybody else knowing, including the coaches, really knew. Like, man, this place is really special. This city, this whole Phoenix metro area is really special. This is why I plan living out here for the rest of my life and building this as home base. And I think it really hit when Coach Dillingham asked me on bye week. He was asking if guys were going anywhere. And he said, "You going anywhere?" He's like, "Oh, no, I forgot. This is home for you." And I think that's the truth, man. He understands how much I love it. I love it here. I love representing this university. It's truly special, man. I got Sparky on me. I got Sparky on the wall. I mean, it's everything. I truly love Arizona State, man. I couldn't be more grateful to represent this university and the run that we went on.
Well, Ben, we're truly grateful for everything you've done for ASU. Truly grateful for helping us out and spend some time with us, not just here today, but all the times you have in the past. And we wish you all the best in your recovery and know you're going to make it at the next level. And this won't be the last time that we'll be catching up during your time as a Sun Devil. But for now, we truly appreciate you, my friend.
No doubt. I appreciate you guys.
Now, after that little bit of a hitting the brakes for the bye week, ASU is ready to shift back into gear, get back on the football field. And if you are jonesing for a new vehicle, like you're jonesing for yet another ASU victory, well, then your first and only call needs to be the Jones Auto Group. Jones has been servicing the state of Arizona and the Sun Devil community for more than 50 years. And with multiple locations across the state, it is a fact Jones Auto Group was the first and original provider of vehicles to Sun Devil student athletes for NIL purposes. And it's your support that enables them to continue to do that year after year. So these folks have skin in the game, and they've had that since day one. In addition to their unwavering support of Sun Devil Athletics, Jones Auto Group offers unique tax advantages due to their dealership locations that can save you big-time money. So it doesn't get much better than that when you're shopping for a new vehicle. You get to work with a fellow Sun Devil who will treat you like family and potentially set you up for some big-time savings. So here's what you got to do. If you're in the market for a new ride, if you want to be one of those really gutsy people like in the commercials who buys a Christmas present for their significant other that's a vehicle with a huge bow on it, which is a really big investment that you probably shouldn't make as a Christmas present. But anyhow, if you want to do that, contact Parker Jones, not just the owner and GM, but a third-generation Arizona State alum and a diehard Sun Devil fan. Take down his cell phone number, 602-881-8998. Shoot him a call, give him a text. Parker Jones, 602-881-8998. You can browse their inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles at jonesautocenters.com. Jones Auto Group, Arizona's best since 1970.
Joining the program now to give us an inside look at the Mountaineers is Keenan Cummings, the managing editor of WVSports.com. Keenan, thanks for joining the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for having me on.
All right, so let's take a look at the season as a whole. Obviously, Rich Rod making the return to West Virginia, 10 games in at 4-6. Bowl eligibility still on the table, though a couple of tough games on the slate. To this point so far through 10 games, how do you evaluate season one of the return of Rich Rod?
Well, it's been a unique season, to say the least. I think that it kind of started a little weird. At least I've been covering West Virginia 15 years and been around the program longer than that, and I've never seen anything like what unfolded this offseason. West Virginia added 80-some new players, so it was practically an entirely new roster. Lost a lot of guys, either to graduation or through the transfer portal, which happens nowadays. But, it was kind of a complete rebuild. They had a few pieces coming back, and then once the season started, a lot of those guys got hurt. West Virginia's played 5 different quarterbacks at different times this year. I think they've found some consistency now with Scotty Fox on offense over the last couple games, but it's been up and down. I think you started the non-conference schedule. They won the opener in convincing fashion, went on the road and kind of laid a dud at Ohio, then came back and beat Pitt. And, you're 2-1 going into Big 12 play, feeling pretty good about where they're at. And then they proceeded to lose 5 straight. But after that, this team has been playing much better football. The past 2 games, they've been a lot more consistent offensively and defensively. Effort really hasn't been a question mark throughout the year outside of maybe the UCF game. They've played hard, but you're starting to see some of those results and kind of what people expect out of a Rich Rodriguez team.
You mentioned just with the offseason kind of overhaul and rebuild there, so many new faces. How much do you think, all those new pieces maybe influence kind of, the struggles in conference play out of the gates?
Yeah, I think it plays a role. I mean, for West Virginia, one of the biggest areas where they kind of had to rebuild almost everything was the offensive line. And that's not what you want to be doing. You don't want to be trying to rebuild your offensive line through the transfer portal, but that's kind of the position they were in. I think they lost 8 of their top 10 guys last year, either to graduation or the portal. So it's taken some time to gel. I think you're seeing that group get a little bit more confident. Starting to get a little bit more push as the season goes along, which is a good thing. You're starting to see the team gel together more. This team right now is, I don't want to say night and day because they're still a young group and you got a freshman quarterback, but markedly different than the group that went to BYU or the group that, went on the road and laid a dud at UCF. So they've played a lot better together, and that's really what you want to see. I think what most West Virginia fans kind of understood what this year was going to be. They remember year 1 under Rich Rodriguez in his first tenure. It was 3-8. At times it looked bad, and then he kind of turned things around. I think a lot of people understand the product that Rich has, the history that he has, and kind of how things work. So there's not any kind of panic. No one's pressing the panic button in Morgantown. Really, you just wanted to see improvement, and I think you've started to see that. And if you can consistently see that, I mean, they understand the next 2 games are going to be very difficult. But as long as they're playing hard and showing improvement, I think people can use that as a kind of a building block moving into the future.
And that upswing includes a couple of wins in recent weeks. An impressive win over Houston, a Cougar team that was just coming off defeating Arizona State, and then of course last week against Colorado. What has really kind of stood out to you in terms of this turnaround and getting some W's?
I think it starts with quarterback play, just consistency there. That alone has been an issue. I mentioned earlier, West Virginia's played 5 different quarterbacks at 5 different times. They've started 4 different quarterbacks. They found some consistency with Scotty Fox. He's a guy that opened the year, a true freshman, was probably 5th on their depth chart. And just really by attrition and him playing solid, he's starting to kind of run away with this thing. I think if you ask Rich Rodriguez today, it's his job to lose. Now, some of those guys haven't played for a while, but still kind of speaks to how he's played recently. He's got some impressive arm talent. Still a freshman, though. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have some things that happen. But, I think that the most encouraging thing to me, I think most people would probably point to West Virginia going on the road and beating Houston. To me, it's what they did the following week. West Virginia played well at Houston. They got some breaks at Houston. They did not play well against Colorado at home. They struggled for a large portion of that game. But when it came down to crunch time and making plays to win the game, they made them. And good teams find ways to win games when they don't play their best. I'm not saying West Virginia's a good team, but that's obviously the goal. And seeing that kind of improvement, that jump, is completely different than what you saw earlier in the year. Because when this team didn't show up, there were some crooked numbers on the scoreboard.
All right, let's talk about that guy you mentioned a couple times already, and Scotty Fox really kind of injected some excitement into this offense, making his way up through maybe some unconventional means on that depth chart. What's been your evaluation of his plays so far, and what are kind of some of the skills that he brings to leading this offense?
Yeah, he's a really good fit for what Rich does. I actually cover recruiting in my job, and I was very impressed with him as a high school prospect. He actually committed under Neil Brown, the former coach, and I thought he was the best high school quarterback that Neil Brown had recruited, and he's lived up to that so far. It's a small sample size, but he has a really lively arm, can make all the throws. Still learning, though. He's still young. You'll make mistakes at times, but he's an active runner too. A lot of people didn't give him credit for that, coming into the program, but he's got good legs. He can run and really create things. I think that the thing that you can see kind of developing and the nucleus around him is that his teammates have confidence in him. And you can see that, that's growing week in week. And as he gets more comfortable, there's a real chance for him to kind of take this thing and run with it into the future.
Speaking of running with it, that's what Rich Rod offenses love to do. Just run, run, run. I believe the West Virginia team has about the fourth most rush attempts in the country. And, the backfield seems to have been dealing with some injury issues throughout the course of this season. So right now at this stage of the season, who are some of the ball carriers that are going to be leading the charge of this run game?
Yeah, it goes back to what I said at the top. They've dealt with a lot of crazy stuff this year. They've lost their top two running backs for the year. They're arguably their best player in Jaheim White, only played a game and a quarter this season. So they've had to adjust on the fly. Dior Hubbard, kind of the same story as Scotty Fox. He didn't even travel, with the team to Ohio. He was probably fifth, maybe even sixth on the depth chart, has really emerged of late, played really good ball. He was Big 12 freshman of the week this past week. And, he's able to get some tough runs, able to make people miss tackles. Can catch some passes. Had a 69-yard pass play this past week where he got open, down the sideline, got matched up with a linebacker. So versatile skill set. Kind of got banged up a little bit in that game, so that might be something to watch. But I think that he is a guy that they've kind of depended on. They've got Sincere Bowers too, kind of a running back that they can use as a more of a change of pace type guy. He's got great speed. And then last week they kind of unveiled a new deal in the red zone. Curtis Jones, he was an all-state running back here in West Virginia, recruited to play linebacker. He's played defense all year, defensive special teams. Rich had hinted at it, a few times before. It was a possibility. He went ahead and did it, put him in there, gave him 3 carries. What did he do on those 3 carries? He scored 2 touchdowns and got a first down. So I think that might be something that continues to grow as well. He's a different dynamic, kind of a bigger guy, 6'2", 225 pounds. So brings a different element, especially in those short yardage situations.
So when West Virginia does decide to air it out, who are some of the key names to watch in terms of the pass catchers for Scotty Fox?
Another position that they've dealt with injuries. It's a reoccurring theme this year, but they do have some good guys. I think that Cam Vaughn is, you see glimpses of what he could be. He was a former high school quarterback that transitioned to receiver in college under Rich Rodriguez. He actually played for him at Jacksonville State, was their leading wide receiver last year. He has shown some really big playability, ability to make people miss. Jeff Weimer is a guy that is really dependable. I think on third down last week, I think he had caught 2 passes and both of them were first downs on third down. So he's one of those guys that they'll look to in those situations. And they have some others as well. Rodney Gallagher has been around for a while. He's a dependable slot guy. Christian Hamilton has been seeing more time of late. a transfer from North Carolina, and they've got some other names too. But the two big ones I would say coming into this, I guess if you want to throw Rodney in there too, but would be Vaughn and Weimer.
And flipping over to the other side of the ball, when West Virginia's out there on the defensive side of things, what should ASU's offense kind of expect to see from a schematic perspective?
That's a good question. Zach Alley is known for mixing things up. The buzzword in college football anymore is multiple. You hear it everywhere you talk to her. I mean, it's kind of just what people say, but this really is multiple. He will throw different looks between series. He will have a different looking defense between games. He really matches to the opponent. It's not one of those old school defenses where, hey, I'm going to go out and play this and you beat it. Really tries to adjust and make things difficult. A lot of things showing things pre-snap and different post-snap. So it'll be interesting to see how he plans this attack and how he goes after it. But I think that, he's not afraid to bring pressure, not afraid to leave his corners on islands at times. So that's led to some big plays. But overall, this group's starting to get a little bit better, especially in the realm of stopping the run. People are getting it aligned a lot better, being in the right places, filling the right gaps. And at times that was an issue earlier in the year.
Looks like Fred Perry has been a real bright spot on the defense. Names everywhere in terms of the statistical leaderboards there. What does he bring to this defense, and what kind of skill set does he provide?
Yeah, he's a versatile guy. He's kind of in the mold of that linebacker safety deal. Plays nickel for them, but he can move around. He's around the football a lot. He's around the line of scrimmage. I had a play against BYU. West Virginia lost the game, but just fantastic. He was able to get in the backfield, hit the ball down, and recover it on a pitch. So he's kind of a dynamic guy that they'll use in a lot of different ways. And I think that you look at his tackle numbers; they're usually some of the highest on the team because the guy just finds himself around the football and is able to make plays.
You mentioned, stopping the run has been kind of a strength as of late. I believe, the yards per carry average is among the better teams nationally. What are some other strengths of this defense, and what are some areas so far that you think that perhaps they struggled and can improve down the stretch?
I think for the most part, they've gotten better throughout the season at kind of making teams earn things. They're good on third down. They are able to get off the field on third down. One of the things they've struggled at times is with explosives, which earlier in the season, teams were getting them in the run game. Of late, it's been more in the pass game. Now, some of those numbers are a little skewed because Houston was kind of playing comeback against West Virginia over the last couple of weeks, so they were throwing the ball a lot down the field. But even last week, Juju Lewis for Colorado made some really nice throws. There was some good coverage there, too. He just made some really impressive throws in tight coverage. So I think that this defense has shown the ability that it can get beat down the field at times. But if they're stopping the run more, it's forcing them into more favorable situations, which is allowing them to get some pressure. Last week, West Virginia had a stretch there where they didn't record a sack in 4 games. They had 7 sacks last week and 15 tackles for loss. So stopping the run makes a big difference when it comes to getting some pressure.
As we last one for you. So, who's one guy on each side of the ball, maybe a little bit under the radar type of player that you think could play a big role in deciding Saturday's outcome?
That's a good question. I think one area we didn't talk about, but I think it's a really important part for you, is their usage of their tight ends. They're not the biggest guys, but they play a big factor in the run game, especially the past 2 weeks. That's been a big role for West Virginia. Also, Grayson Barnes is a pass catcher. So I'd watch for him as well. He had a couple big catches this year, especially the touchdown to send the Pitt game into overtime and a couple other plays. So that's something to watch. On defense, kind of the wild card to me, and you've seen him improve, kind of drastically over the last couple weeks, is Jamori Robinson. He was the American Athletic Defensive Player of the Year a year ago. Was West Virginia one of their big transfer additions, but kind of had an eligibility issue that had him hung up, wasn't able to practice with the team, started really slow, I think, through the first couple of appearances. He didn't play till the Kansas game, which was their 4th game of the year, and then started slow. Last couple of weeks, he started to make an impact, so it'll be interesting to see if that continues.
Well, awesome, Keenan. Thank you so much for your time and insight and expertise into the West Virginia Mountaineers. Encourage all our listeners and viewers to head over to wvsports.com, learn more about ASU's opponent. Should be a good one on Saturday, and it looks like it might be a rainy one as well. So, Keenan, thanks for coming on the show and for your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So now we're about to break down the opposing team for this week. But before we get there, this one right here is for the homies. Now, if you want a restaurant as passionate about supporting Sun Devil athletics as you are, you've got to make Burrito Express your local burrito joint. Burrito Express began with a vision, a family-run Mexican restaurant serving authentic food with fast, friendly service and deep community roots, making Burrito Express a true multi-generational, family-led legacy. From the beginning, it's always been about flavor, family, and the people they serve at Burrito Express. Burrito Express is more than just a place to eat. They're part of the neighborhood, and as you know by now, a strong figure in the Sun Devil community. From day one, they've focused on bold flavors, fast service, and real connections with the communities that they serve. It's that mix of quality, culture, and care that make Burrito Express different. Burrito Express delivers bold flavor, fast service, and hometown pride in every bite. Order online for pickup or delivery and fuel up with real deal burritos made fresh daily across the valley. You can visit any of their 9 locations, 2 of which currently are fast and fresh restaurants located in Circle K stores. You can find Burrito Express in Tempe, Scottsdale, Chandler, Gilbert, and Queen Creek. Most locations are open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 to 3 on Saturdays and Sundays, with some locations open 6 to 3 during the week and 7 to 3 on weekends. Check them out online at theburritoexpress.com. Follow them on social media for a real good time at Burrito EXP on Twitter and Instagram, Burrito Express AZ on TikTok, and on Facebook at facebook.com/your local burrito joint. All right, Brad, let's break it down here. ASU welcoming a team that's got a little momentum, didn't start the season with any, a familiar face, so just a pretty unique circumstance coming to town. West Virginia Mountaineers. So let's talk this through. So the series right now tied 1-1. So the rubber match of this so far 3-game series will be determined this weekend. ASU won 42-7 on November the 17th, 1979 in Tempe. It's a season that's most remembered for Frank Cush's early season firing. Things went downhill from there. ASU lost 4 of its last 5 games that 1979 season, but the lone victory they had was against West Virginia. Most recently, however, ASU lost in the Cactus Bowl in Phoenix, 43-42, following the 2015 season. That game was played on January 2nd, 2016. That was a frustrating game that really was a cap on a frustrating season.
Yeah, that was not a fun game to cover. And I believe Todd Graham botched a 2-point decision late in that game. Quishy Brown, I believe PFF tagged him as like giving up 9 catches for like 330 yards.
It was really brutal
in that game. And also, I think it was an 8:40 local kickoff.
It was. I remember I actually didn't attend, but I remember watching that, and it was just like, man, like I'm okay on watching this one on TV.
It was rough. And so by the time I finally left after like filing my story and all that, it was the latest I've ever left a game. Even like that includes like the weather delayed opener in 23. So I left like around 4 a.m. So just that there's the whole thing, just like that Motel 6 Cactus Bowl can go back to hell.
There you go. So hopefully the rubber match is more like that 79 game than the 2015 one. So now then, of course, those are the 2 only times ASU and West Virginia have met on the gridiron. ASU has seen West Virginia's head coach much more recently than that, Rich Rodriguez, who had a storied run as head coach at West Virginia from 2001 to 2007. And then, of course, at Arizona from 2012 to 2017, coached his last regular season game with the Wildcats in Tempe. Of course, a loss to ASU because he has not won in Tempe. Lost all 3 games, 2013, 2015, 2017. Rich Rod returned to West Virginia to start this season after a successful 3-year run at Jacksonville State from 2022 to 24. So just that unique year in the Big 12. You got Rich Rod, you got Scott Frost, returning to the schools where they got their coaching prominence after kind of attempting to go elsewhere and not having a ton of success. But sometimes there are guys that are just the right fits for the right programs, and they can make things happen. So again, it's been a tough season so far. West Virginia is right now at 4-6. A bowl eligibility still on the table. But their last 2 games are, of course, against ASU and then Texas Tech at the end of the year. They're going to have to sweep those in order to get into a bowl game. They started off 0-5 in conference play, but have won their last 2 with a pretty shocking win over Houston, where they scored in excess of 40 points, which for this West Virginia team is not a thing they've been doing. And then they beat Colorado as well. So some momentum they're bringing into Tempe.
Yeah, so 2 straight wins, and that's just kind of proof that anybody in the Big 12 can take down anybody on any given day. And this is a team that is, I think, with the high number of turnover that we'll probably touch on here in a second, just so many new faces, almost an entirely new roster, and then you throw in an ASU kind of level, maybe even more of injuries, and just in terms of how both sides of the ball, especially on the offensive side, have just been really ravaged by the injury bug as well. It's taken a while for them to figure stuff out, and some fans that back in West Virginia, Morgantown, are kind of remembering that first year and the first tenure of Rich Rod, kind of going a little rough, but you're starting to see some signs of optimism, some growth. Perhaps unearthing a unlikely star at the quarterback position for the future as well. But it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this team's able to parlay their recent success. Obviously, having that win over Houston is impressive. Then kind of scraping by a little bit against a Colorado team who's right there, I think, neck and neck with Oklahoma State in terms of just the conference format this year. And and plus you mentioned kind of the years of Rich Rod. I was like, oh, is this like the odd numbered year thing that he's got here? So maybe another thing in ASU's favor.
Right in line. Yeah, it is wild that the last one was 8 years ago. Time does fly. So talking about the personnel on this West Virginia team at quarterback, the season began with starter Nico Markiel, Hamilton High School grad, guy from Chandler. A lot of you probably are familiar with him, but he got injured early in the season. And then, according to reports, going to redshirt and very likely transfer. So at the helm right now, as Brad alluded to, true freshman quarterback Scotty Fox, pretty highly rated recruit, decent prospect there. He's seen a great deal of action, especially in these last 4 games or so. Overall, he's had freshman moments. You look at the overall numbers, there have been some games where he had just some limited time, but he has got 5 touchdown passes, 4 interceptions, 203 net rushing yards with 3 scores, one of which was a 59-yard run in the season opener. He's got 3 games with at least 50 net rushing yards. So, again, a guy that can move. He had 301 passing yards in a loss to TCU, a couple interceptions in his most recent outing. So, talent, freshman moments seems to be the summary of the case there.
Yeah, and of course, this is a Rich Rodriguez team, so you know exactly what they're going to do on offense, and they're going to have a mobile quarterback that's running a run-heavy offense. Mountaineers have the 4th most rush attempts of any team in the FBS. You're going to see a lot of zone read, RPO as well. But yeah, Fox has kind of injected some life, as and they've really had to go down the depth chart. This is like 2023 levels of at ASU in terms of just getting down to your 4th, 5th string guy. But yeah, he's really been impressive. As you mentioned, some freshman moments that are to be expected, completing under 60% of his balls on the season. But with that dual threat ability and some of the running backs who have emerged in kind of their own injury issues in the backfield as well, I think they're making the most of it. And obviously, from a schematic perspective, Rich Rod knows how to gain yards on the ground.
Yeah, so returning rusher Jaheim White suffered a season-ending injury in September. Been a group approach since then. Dior Hubbard leads the team with 328 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. Khalil Wilkins has 243 yards with 2 touchdowns. Sincere Bowers, 204 yards with 2 touchdowns. So a couple of guys getting action. Obviously, the quarterback position, they run a lot as well. In the past game, Cam Vaughn leads the way with 30 catches, 461 yards, 4 touchdowns. Jeff Weimer, 12 catches, 216 yards with a score. Rodney Gallagher has 25 receptions for 212 yards. Tight end Grayson Barnes, 17 catches, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. So a handful of guys that get involved in the pass game, a handful of guys that get involved in the ground game. Decent collective effort, no individual statistics that really leap off the page there to you. Talking about some of the team statistical rankings, 40th in rush offense, which is kind of interesting because they do run the ball a ton. ASU's 31st in the country in rush offense, 21 rushing touchdowns, but they average under 4 yards per carry as a team. They rank 112th in the country in pass offense, under 178 yards, next to last in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma State. And Oklahoma State is absolutely putrid this year. Only 13 teams in the country have fewer than the 8 touchdown passes thrown by West Virginia this year. They're also tied for 100th in sacks allowed, 87th in total offense, 95th in the country in scoring offense. In those categories I just rattled off, those last few, only Colorado and Oklahoma State have worse performances on the year in the Big 12 than West Virginia. So all in all, some bumps and bruises in some areas, on the ground where they've got some okay numbers, but there are a lot of areas just where this team has experienced some significant growing pains on offense.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to be running the ball a lot. They're not going to be putting the ball in the air, and we'll get some of the keys to the game, but especially having a freshman quarterback back there, and then you look at some of the key areas. Just you mentioned kind of this, even though they run the ball a lot, not terribly efficient on the ground, and they're not particularly explosive overall in terms of just generating any plays from scrimmage. 99th in the country in yard and 30+ yard plays. And look at some of those key moments and those critical downs, third downs. They're among the worst in the country, 132nd overall, just converting just 30%. So those early downs are going to be absolutely crucial for the ASU defense and the Sun Devils to really continue that momentum against Iowa State, and making sure that the Mountaineers stay in second and third and long. And you don't want to make sure that they get that ground game going a little bit and can chip away, because as you mentioned, there's been some issues. The offensive line still trying to figure itself out. Not particularly successful in terms of keeping the defense out of the backfield overall. So I think right there, if ASU's defense can just win those early downs, keep the run game in check, that'll go a long way into getting the win streak going.
So flipping things over to the defense, defensive back Fred Perry leads the way, team high 70 tackles, also leads the team with 9 tackles for loss, team high 2 forced fumbles, second on the squad with 3 sacks, and that's from a defensive back position. Linebacker Reed Carricker leads the team with 3.5 sacks, 5 quarterback hurries, also ranks third on the team with 50 tackles. Safety Darian Lewis ranks second on the team with 57 tackles and ties for the team lead with 2 interceptions. We'll go into some of the group statistics here in just a brief moment. The one that stands out to me as far as the highest ranking, and something that we're not yet at our keys, but spoiler alert, it's going to be in there. West Virginia is tied for 13th nationally with 17 takeaways. So turnovers, you think, in this ball game, probably going to be a pretty important statistic to monitor.
Yeah, it's going to be, looks like the forecast, it's going to be probably another cold, rainy day. Could be a slippery ball situation. Now, ASU had a couple of turnovers, or a few turnovers, that they were able to kind of get away with against Iowa State. So that could be a situation to watch. Jeff Sims got to take care of that ball. But yeah, they've kind of run a very multiple defensive scheme. Traditionally you see a lot of 3-3-5 looks from Rich Rod, kind of having that kind of, going back in the ASU parlance, like that kind of that spur backer position. That Fred Perry has been really effective at, just kind of one of those guys, fills all kinds of columns in the stat sheet. They've been really good recently in terms of shutting down the ground games for the opposition, but they've given up 20 touchdown passes through the air as well. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what kind of game plan ASU marches out there. We talked about the balance that they were able to have against Iowa State, more so in maybe the first half than the second. But this is a defense that is going to give up some stuff, but also, if you're not careful, can take away. And when you have those upset bids, when you're coming in as a 10-point underdog, getting a turnover or two here, there, in a key moment can swing the pendulum.
Talking about that spur, shout out to my man Leo Mokiola, man, one of the greats. Miss that dude around here.
I was thinking some Chris Young too.
There you go. Okay, yeah, I'll take those two in my linebacker group or defense any day, minute, week, year that ever exists. I'll take both those. Known both as people too. Great dudes, incredible athletes as well. Another area where West Virginia is pretty good, tied for 37 nationally in team sacks, 2.4 per game. 58th in rush defense at a little over 141 yards allowed, but then there are some categories where it gets pretty bad. 100th in total defense, that's third worst in Big 12 behind Colorado and Oklahoma State. 118th in pass defense, allowing a little under 260 yards per game. That's second worst in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma State. So again, a couple areas that stand out. One significant one, because turnovers, that alone can turn the tide of a game. But as far as some of the other categories, again, similar to offense, just quite a few growing pains for this West Virginia team.
You mentioned that pass rush. They had a 3-4 game stretch where they did not register a sack, but then last week really came to life. Now it'll be interesting. Was that 7-sack performance against Colorado be just them kind of finding their footing? And this is, of course, a defensive scheme that likes to bring some pressure, gets creative with their blitzes. Or is it a situation of just Colorado being Colorado and just being a dreadful state of affairs currently? We'll see, because ASU, the tackle situation and holding back the pass rush hasn't been great overall collectively throughout the course of the season. But most recently against Iowa State, they kept Jeff Sims clean, and part of that is Jeff Sims, a mobile guy. But you'd like to see that pass rush and maintaining a clean pocket continue for another week, especially in wet conditions.
Before we break down our keys to this ball game, a key to being a Sun Devil fan is being a subscriber to devilsdigest.com. You got to be there. Obviously, of course, as we tell you, premium subscription at devilsdigest.com gets you access to content on both the Rivals and On 3 network. And of course, gets you access to the Devil's Huddle, incredible message board with an unbelievable amount of Sun Devil content, great conversations. And we are in that time of year where there's a lot going on. We talked about it earlier. You got a marquee basketball game Friday night. Then you're back in Tempe for a huge football game. You know, you got hockey seasons going on, things like that. Things are moving. Wrestling's getting started here soon. Women's basketball is underway.
Signing day is just a couple weeks away.
Signing day is coming up. Like, it is in full swing. So there is no better time than right now to be a subscriber to devilsdigest.com. So here's what you do. You take out your cellular phone, or if you're on a computer, that works too. Get that keyboard up, type in devilsdigest.com, find the area where it says, you know, become a subscriber. Take it from there and you won't regret it. Again, that's devilsdigest.com. You can follow them on Twitter at devilsdigest. All right. So let's jump right into these keys. For me, a huge one. Again, just going to go into the one that I spoiler alerted a moment ago. Protect the ball. West Virginia, again, ties for 13th in the country with 17 takeaways on the year. You know, that game at Iowa State featured a dazzling performance by Jeff Sims, but also some turnovers. Now, you know, the weather and tip balls and things like that. There are other factors involved, but as we know, you know, Jeff Sims has had a bit of a reputation in the past of having turnover issues, and weather may be a concern as well for this game. So whether it's a true fault or just circumstantial because of the elements, whatever it may be, no matter, you know, how you break it down, protecting the ball is going to be huge, because I feel like that right there is like the difference making thing in this game. I feel that even with the injuries, ASU should have a decided, you know, talent advantage over West Virginia, but the great nullifier there can be turnovers. So ASU really needs to, be in charge of that department. If it is a bad weather game, you know, there might be some, but you can't be at a deficit. So taking care of the ball is such a huge key to this game.
Hopefully Jeff Sims gets a start where it's not cold and raining, because both of his starts so far this year have been in less than ideal conditions.
And even like Cincinnati, I don't think was great. I mean, what was that like? I don't know. I wasn't at that game.
It was really early. I think it was it was for a body clock purpose. It was bad. For me, ASU must maintain a good offensive balance. One of the key things that came out of that Iowa State game was the fact that ASU was obviously able to run the ball pretty well, but also to attack downfield, not just throw the ball downfield, but make the deep connections. Malik McClain, Jalen Moss getting going a little bit. The Jeff Sims to Shimon Mateer connection has been evident for a while now. I think that has been a crucial element, and I think that's going to prevent some defenses from just really kind of putting 8-9 guys in the box. You know, ASU is going to want to run the ball, but I think, you know, despite the conditions on Saturday, they're going to need to have that offensive balance. You don't need to throw the ball 30 times a game to beat this Mountaineer team, I don't think. But they're going to need to be able to take shots, extend the field, and keep that defense honest for ASU to really kind of hit their stride down the home stretch.
So key number 2 for me is to buy time for Jeff Sims. So ASU is tied for 116th nationally in sacks allowed. The relative strength of West Virginia, they tie for 37th nationally in team sacks. However, West Virginia has one of the worst pass defenses in the nation, and they defend the run a lot better than the pass. So if ASU can buy time for Sims, the numbers tell us that he should be able to make some connections in the pass game. And obviously, if Sims is under frequent duress, you know, through pass rush, that's going to really crank up the odds of turnovers. So, you know, the offensive line had a really solid game against Iowa State, and you want to see a similar performance here, because that's going to go a long way, you know, in determining the outcome of this game. And, you know, it typically does. The play in the trench is obviously a vital thing in every single ball game, but this is one that really figures to have that be an important aspect.
My second key for the game is for the Sun Devil defense to really force the game on young Scotty Fox. West Virginia, they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball an awful lot. They run the ball more than just about anybody in the country. And with that rich rod offense, you know what you're going to get. You have to stay disciplined to keep up with all the zone reads, RPO situations. Now, of course, they have a young quarterback, some young running backs in that backfield as well. So I think ASU's front six is really going to have to kind of stay disciplined, making sure that they take care of the run game and really kind of swing and put the pressure on the arm of Scotty Fox and to throw that ball around. That's something that they're not comfortable doing. That's not their specialty. And we've seen ASU secondary kind of rise to the challenge and make some big plays over the course of this season. So I think if you're going to able to kind of keep the Mountaineer offense in those second and long, third and long situations, into passing situations, that's going to go a long way into helping the Sun Devils get a dub.
My third key is kind of in a similar light, and that's Rattle, the freshman. Scotty Fox has had some playmaking moments, some impressive rushing games. He's had a 300-yard passing game, but he's had those freshman moments as well. ASU's defense, you got to get after him. I mean, that needs to be the MO for this Sun Devil defense. When you have, your backup quarterback who obviously had just a game for his lifetime a couple weeks ago, but it is still QB2. The Sun Devil defense can really help its offense's case and the team's case by just flying around, attacking, getting to the quarterback, forcing some turnovers. Again, West Virginia hasn't, though they have group efforts in the pass and run game, there just isn't that, really impressive running back or that top tier wide receiver or tight end that you got to worry about. Again, talented players, but just not the likes of what we've seen, with some other teams. So ASU's defense with that true freshman taking the snaps, if you can get in that guy's face, make it a tough atmosphere for him. And then, we'll also see how the crowd factors in with that. The early game, I feel ashamed I didn't do the research, but I have to imagine this is the earliest kickoff time. It may not be the first time that it's been the case, but I can't think of a earlier kickoff in Tempe than 11 o'clock. Obviously, ASU, especially in the Big 12, has had 9 a.m. kickoffs elsewhere, but I just don't know that I remember one this early. So it's so atypical for Sun Devils and Sun Devil fans and their tailgating and all that stuff. So it could be one of those games that we've seen, in day games, especially not against like a primetime nationally ranked team where it takes a little bit for the crowd to arrive and get going and wake up and that sort of thing. So we'll see how the early standings go with things. And before we jump into our scores, going to throw out another thank you to our sponsors, of course, Sun Devil Family Charities, longtime sponsor of ours. We are incredibly grateful for everything that they do for us. They are a 501c3 nonprofit organization created primarily for the purpose of raising funds to provide financial assistance to ASU alumni, students, staff, and immediate family members adversely affected by medical issues. Their SDFC CARES program allows qualified individuals to request financial assistance for medical hardships that they may be facing. So basically, like we tell you each time out, if you or anybody in your family, someone that you love, people that you know, if they are suffering financial hardships due to medical issues, they have some tie to Arizona State, it's possible they could get some financial assistance from Sun Devil Family Charities. So we highly encourage you to check out SDFC and see if there's something that they might be able to help you out with. Or on the other hand, they also, of course, always accept monetary donations, and volunteer and sponsorship opportunities are available as well. And you can check out everything they have to offer on their website, sundevilfamily.org. So Brad, how do you see this one shaking out?
Well, before I dive into that, I'll give you my third key for the game.
Yeah, that's true.
Margin management. Because ASU, of course, as you mentioned, Joe, is as well as he's played a couple weeks ago, Jeff Sims is QB2. So you're in with all the other injuries, the Ben Coleman, Xavier Alford, the margin for that ASU has for victory is getting a little thinner. And while I do think that they're better than the 3 teams that remain on their schedule, you just cannot continue to keep getting away or count on getting away with these self-inflicted issues, the penalties, the special teams, execution errors, some of the procedural stuff. And, there's going to be some mistakes, especially when you're forcing guys that are 2 and 3 on the depth chart to step in and play more prominent roles. But you just simply can't do that week in and week out. And we've seen it cost ASU in some critical situations. So just, at this point of the season, you are who you are, but just try to be a little bit better version of that going forward. Now, as for Saturday and how I see things, I think that this is going to be a low scoring affair. I think this was, even without the kind of the wet and cold forecast, I think that this is going to be a situation where we've seen this ASU offense, even at their best, not be one that's going to put up a ton of points on the scoreboard. On the flip side, the ASU defense outside of that Knight and SLC has been really, really good. I think that this is going to be a close game on the scoreboard, but not necessarily kind of in the vibes or how things are going. I think ASU is going to kind of come back refreshed, and it'll be interesting to see in that first quarter how they come back after having that kind of week off from from practice, during that bye week. But I think that they're going to come out a little bit focused, knowing that and kind of circle the wagons type of mentality. And I think that they're going to take control of this game. I think they're going to stay in control of this game. And while the final margin I don't think is going to be too terribly significant, I think that ASU fans should probably never feel too awful threatened in this game. I think the run game is for ASU is going to be able to find some success think the Sun Devil defense is really going to be the kind of the star overall in the game, that Jeff Sims is going to make enough plays to outweigh any mistakes that might be happening. Sun Devils improved to 7-3 with a 27-17 victory.
There was part of me that really wanted to be concerned about this game. ASU came out terribly after the last bye week, but that's against a much different caliber opponent, and being on the road versus home is a big deal. Also kind of weirdly concerns me that, only on one occasion this year, even though ASU is 6-3, on only one occasion have they won consecutive games. And that was Baylor and TCU. It's just been this alternating thing since that point, and that back and forth, of course, would have ASU in the ill column if that were to continue. But, being back at home is a very good thing. Though ASU had terrible performance against Houston last time out at home, this team just historically, and especially, the last year and a half or so, has been just much, much better at home than on the road. So that's a fortunate thing here. I'm eager to see, what impact the kickoff time has. It's just a different time of day for everybody to be involved. Whether it's the players, whether it's the fans, I'm just genuinely curious what the environment is going to be like in the first quarter of the ball game, and to see what impact that has. But overall, I agree and feel that the ASU's defense has been really standing out, and playing against a true freshman quarterback, I just feel like there will be some plays made, but some errors made that will nullify things. So Jeff Sims has that just dynamic ability, and even if there are some turnover issues, I'll take the experienced senior over the true freshman in this particular circumstance. So ultimately, again, kind of similar to Brett, I feel like this is going to be a close game in the end, but maybe not necessarily a true nail biter throughout. And so I am picking ASU to take this ball game by a score 31-24.
All right. So before we talk to a couple of Sun Devils, get their thoughts on the bye week and facing them off against the Mountaineers.
Huge shout out to our great friends at Cactus Sports. You got to get geared up for this weekend's sports games. If you're going to that Gonzaga game, going to the West Virginia game, just get outfitted at Cactus Sports. Of course, while many ASU stores have come and gone, Cactus Sports is a community staple, founded, owned, and operated by ASU alumni since 1992. Every purchase made through Cactus Sports results in royalties that help support Arizona State University. Many of their competitors have been bought out and operated by out-of-state corporations, while Cactus Sports stays locally owned and operated. They consider it a privilege to be able to work together with their guests, alumni, fans, and students who help give input for some of the products that Cactus Sports buys. And when you purchase from Cactus Sports, not only are you assured of the highest quality, officially licensed merchandise, but you also have the satisfaction of knowing that you've truly helped support a local, small, Sun Devil-owned business. Cactus Sports is located at 514 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and Sundays from 10 to 6. And they tend to have different hours on game days, and we'll keep an eye out for what their hours are on this upcoming game day. You can also view their full inventory and shop online at cactussports.com with free domestic ground shipping of orders of $75 or more. If you're an out-of-state Sun Devil or out of the area and you're buying things for yourself or maybe your loved ones, holidays coming up, take advantage of that. Load up, get some free shipping. Be sure to follow Cactus Sports on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Cactus Sports AZ, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cactus Sports AZ. Locally owned and ASU alumni operated since 1992. Shop at Cactus Sports and think local, buy local, be local.
All right. After Tuesday's practice, I caught up with a couple of Sun Devils, one on each end of the experience spectrum. First up, you'll hear from cornerback Keith Abney talking about the benefits of the bye week and facing off against the Mountaineers. Keith, how beneficial was the time away, the week off of, at least from the practice and physical aspects?
I say it was good peace of mind. Just, take your mind off of it a little bit, reset, refocus, get your body right for this last stretch of the season. So I feel like it was great for us.
What were some of the things that you guys were able to do, even though you weren't necessarily on the practice field, to stay sharp and keep ready?
Just, getting a little bit of position work in, coming in and watching film from prior weeks, try to clean up things that, you might need to clean up. I'll say just getting your body right, recovering, just those things for sure.
Going back a couple of weeks against Iowa State, obviously, the news of, Jeff Sims going to be taking over the offense. Did the defense collectively, kind of maybe come together and say, we want to make sure that, we set the table for success as much as possible, even, with the backup quarterback coming in?
Definitely, I feel like that should be our mindset every game, even if it was, Patrick Mahomes behind there. We said, we got the defense, we got the offense back, they got our back. We want to, not allow them to score points, because they don't score points, they can't win. And so, yeah, we just, have full confidence in Jeff, knowing that he's going to go in there and make plays that he did. So, yeah, it was good just knowing that Jeff got our back and we got his.
And they didn't score a whole lot of points in that second half, just 3 points allowed. You guys really kind of dominated, especially on third down. What were some of the keys to just kind of lock things down and pull away and get that win?
Just trusting the cause, not trying to be a Superman out there, just trusting that Coach Ward going to put us in a position to make a play, trusting your brothers, not trying to do their job. Just everybody doing their 111th, and everything's going to play out.
Facing a West Virginia team, that likes to run the ball a lot. What are some of the things that jump out about the Mountaineer offense?
They run the ball a lot. They're very physical team. They play fast. Those are a couple things that stood out. They take some shots. They target their receivers a good amount. So I feel like they give their playmakers an opportunity to make plays.
Last call, Justin. With it being Veterans Day and you being on the Pat Tillman Leadership Council, Kenny's talked about the importance of educating the entire team on Tillman and everything he persevered. What does the Tillman Leadership Council mean to you and this team? And I guess, how has that shifted the standard knowing his history more so now?
It means everything to me, especially, the way it works for us. You get voted on it, so just being voted on it by your teammates and, letting them, knowing that they see me as a leader, it's very special to me, especially knowing, what Pat Tillman is to ASU and his legacy and all the things that he's done. So, it's just a blessing, and, I'm very grateful to, be a part of this leadership council.
All right, so you guys had a kind of a week off, at least from a physical perspective. How obviously with the rigors of the season, how beneficial was that time off?
It was very beneficial. We had a lot of guys banged up, and we just had to get that rest and get everybody back to 100% so we could play our best on Saturday.
Obviously, you guys, weren't on the practice field, but that doesn't mean you guys weren't doing work. So, what were some of the things that you guys were doing during that off week?
We were just getting a couple light runs, and just getting back in the weight room. Just trying, get like a little sweaty and the normal.
And of course, making your first collegiate start a couple weeks ago at Iowa State. What were some of the emotions? Like, when did you find out that you were going to be, starting in a pretty obviously important game?
I really 100% knew on that Thursday. I just had to really just prepare myself. I'm a younger guy. They don't really expect me just to know things, and I just try to simplify it in my own way, and just take it one play at a time. It's just you gotta have a good response.
How did the coaching staff and kind of the veteran guys on that line, help prepare you and make sure that you were as well positioned for success?
Yeah, they helped me a lot. Just even pulling me to the side after a play, just telling me a different step or a different mindset to think about when you're doing the play. And they really do help me a lot, the veterans.
And then you guys, as the game went on, the offensive line seemed to really kind of impose the will. Nearly 300 yards rushing as a team. What was that like? Just when you guys find that groove where you guys are able just to kind of impose your will and dictate things on the ground.
Yeah, they can't stop us. When we're all playing on the same page and we're ready to play, they can't stop us. So that's how I feel.
And so you've been running with the first team again, looking like you're going to make another start. So as you mentioned, kind of not usual that true freshmen start on the offensive line, but how do you feel that you've kind of grown since you first got here to where you are today?
Just taking the process one day at a time. I wasn't really what I would say I would just say I was in a different mindset when I first got here, and it just took some time to get in that player mindset, get ready, do what you're supposed to do. So it's been fun.
You mentioned kind of maybe the mental acclimation of making that jump from high school to college. What are some of the other adjustments that you've noticed, the kind of biggest differences now playing big time college football?
Just the waking up early, getting out of bed, like an everyday work job. So you just gotta get used to that. It's not just school no more early in the morning. You gotta come here to work in the morning.
What are some of the most valuable pieces of advice you got maybe from some of the veteran linemen?
Just go play your game. Don't really think about what you have to do. You have to think about what you have to do, but more just go out there and play how you play. Don't overthink it.
Ultimately, why was Arizona State the right place for you? Obviously, you had a lot of offers coming out of high school, so why was being a Sun Devil the best choice for you?
Just the coaching staff. They're 11 coaching staff. I always liked their energy. They're on me heavy, so that's why I chose to come somewhere I was loving.
And then this Saturday, you guys are facing off against a West Virginia defense that has been pretty good against the run so far this year. What really kind of jumps out to you in your film study and just some of the things that they like to do?
They like to, stun a lot, and they're a very physical team. So we just gotta play physical up front and we'll dominate.
The forecast calls for kind of some cold, rainy weather, some smash mouth football type of weather. From a lineman's perspective, you like playing in that kind of stuff?
Yeah, all the time. It's like the best football. Everybody on the ground, all that. Yeah.
What do you think are going to be some of the keys to continuing the win streak against West Virginia?
Just one play at a time. Everybody has to be on the same page, and if we're all on the same page, we come out with the victory.
So ASU, of course, returns to Tempe to take advantage of that home field advantage that it tends to always have. And if you're in the market for a new home or want to use the equity in your home to your advantage, like the Sun Devils do when they play in Tempe, there's a name that you can trust, and likely a name that you already know to help you out. More Lending, that's MOR Lending, is ASU as it gets. And why? Because their national director of builder services is none other than one half of the tailgate tag team champions of the world, everyone's great friend, PJ Saturno of the legendary Crafty Devils Group. PJ and his crew sure know how to get Sun Devil fans ready for ASU game days, and with over 40 years of experience in mortgage lending, PJ and his team will do their absolute best to help you with your mortgage needs. At More Lending, they truly put the customer first and care about helping you out in the best ways possible, and they can operate in several states, including Arizona, California, Texas, and many more, and can help you whether your needs are on the residential side, more on the commercial side of things. More Lending can help with a variety of needs, purchases and refinances. They've got your back. Also, be sure to ask about options for those who are self-employed or looking into investment properties. They're located in Sun Devil territory in Scottsdale. You can find more information about More Lending at morelending.com. Again, that's morlending.com. You can reach out to see how they can help you. Email PJ at morelending.com or give them a call, 480-329-0983. Again, 480-329-0983. More Lending, that's MOR Lending, a new kind of mortgage company with tailored lending solutions to meet your needs. PJ Saturno, NMLS number 257912. More Lending, LLC branch, NMLS number 2732146.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our illustrious guests, Ben Coleman, Maki Stewart, Keith Abney, and Keenan Cummings. This week's game, as we mentioned, it's going to be an early one, 11 a.m. kickoff Arizona time. That's 1 p.m. local for the folks back east. TV is going to be on TNT, which I hear has been doing a pretty good job so far in their broadcast this year.
I guess they have very, very high reviews, especially by comparison to the ESPN Plus fiasco of the start. But yeah, the production wise and the personnel and all that, man, it seems like a lot of folks are just wanting Big 12, just partner with them and let that be it.
Yes, and good news also for the YouTube TV folks out there, as that dispute is ongoing. But in the meantime, make sure you stay with us on the social media side of things. Follow the show on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Definitely subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and give me a follow on all things social at BDenny29.
And you can follow me at Joe Healy 42.
All right, and make sure you give us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Once you're done supporting all of our amazing sponsors, Joe and I will be back next week as we look back at the homecoming game against West Virginia and look ahead to a trip to face Ralphie.